Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Show times again, chart back tonight, 5:30 on APB, KUAC 9.4. Also 5:30 p.m., 360 North at 7:30, and Alaska Public Media 5 a.m. each morning. And also YouTube uploaded at least by 8 p.m. Satellite imagery for today shows a band of clouds here, actually a couple surges of moisture. The first one here in across the southeast coast that brought rain across the area there today, and another one there coming into Queen Charlotte. So probably won't make it that far north. Otherwise, a lot of clear skies here from the Gulf of Alaska into the interior, all the way up to about the Brooks Range, and then back to the west. We've got a front pressing in toward the coastline, weakening as it comes in. With it's over to the Alaska Peninsula this afternoon, and then another batch of clouds slipping on in toward the eastern Aleutians, up to the Pribilofs there, the main low center pulling back to the northwest into the Russian Far East. And behind that, a pretty good break here across the central Aleutians, and then the outer edge of the next cloud shield there, or the next cloud shield associated with the next storm that'll be rolling in tonight, and especially after midnight for the big increase in winds out that way. Otherwise, this moisture mostly being diverted northward here, strong high pressure over mainland Alaska, really directing all that and holding it back to the west, although this trying to break through underneath there to some extent, and then some clouds there coming across the Arctic coast. And with that, there was snow mostly up to the north, but some of that did clip the Barrow area today, some light flurries at times, and otherwise high pressure, 1,031 millibar low here up right along the northern border there, Alaska-Canada border, and all the snow now that we had Thursday night and Friday, of course, off right through here, and then southeast flow pushing a trough, something of a warm front, but really not quite, but some rain, a few hundredths of an inch, maybe a tenth of an inch down over the southern areas, and otherwise some locations picked up about a third of an inch, so nothing too terribly heavy. Sunshine, south central Alaska, and the winds down from what they were yesterday. Still some gusts through the Copper River Delta, but again, nothing serious in the way of wind there. And gusty winds, rain pushing into the Alaska Peninsula, back up toward the Pribilofs there, and just clouds here along the coast with, again, the main precipitation cloud band back to the west, a trough coming in out here, but that's all north of the Aleutians, so it was a pretty good day there from Adak-Atka out toward Shemya. But then tonight, pretty powerful low, 953 millibars, rolls up to just west of Shemya later this evening, and then after midnight pulls to the northwest, and so we've got high wind warnings out coming into the western Aleutians tonight at 1 p.m., and winds will gradually increase, but not to any great extent tonight until tomorrow for the central areas. Meanwhile, this front here weakens along the coast, really unable to make any more eastward progress, just inching its way eastward and weakening as it goes. So periods of rain for the Alaska Peninsula with diminishing winds, a little breezier here from Nunivak Island on up to St. Lawrence Island, where that'll probably be something of a mix, starting out as snow and then trending toward rain there as that warmer southerly flow pushes northward. Different story over the interior. Clear skies, temperatures falling below zero here, anywhere from over the eastern interior down into the Copper River Basin overnight tonight, and definitely down to the 5 to 15 degree range here, south central Alaska, back to the west. And that area of snow actually pushing northward now, southerly flow on the west side of this ridge. So that snow all the way off the coast there, maybe some clouds left behind. And this band pulls off the coast, so look for showers to decrease this evening and end after midnight. Still a risk of some light shower activity there around Port Alexander to maybe Sitka, but for the most part, it'll be done. Some clearing showing up, gusty winds here through the Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay areas as high pressure settles southward and low pressure begins to develop or pushes up to the south there. This gradient increases a little bit tomorrow over what it was today. So we've got gales out for Lynn Canal tomorrow and pretty breezy conditions. This area snow stuck east of the border. Sunshine, North Gulf Coast with barely a breeze of wind anywhere here, even in the marine areas. Kodiak Island, maybe a few clouds, otherwise continued dry. Northward to the Arctic coast, mostly clear skies and pretty good conditions. This is all that's left. It's really washed out. The front here, look for a mixture of rain or snow for the Seward Peninsula and otherwise just scattered areas of light rain or showers south of there all the way down along the Alaska Peninsula. And then the strong front out here as that low lifts northward. There are 60 to 65 knot winds in the marine forecast here for the central and western Aleutians tomorrow. Actually, the western Aleutians turns west 35 in the afternoon, but big winds coming into the AKwx area. Look for gusts possibly as high as 80 miles per hour. And increase in the winds there for the Pribilofs, but dry. The rain holding back to the west. Could be some clearing here over the eastern Aleutians. Not a bad day after the picking up 1.33 inches of rain from this front. Today that ended this afternoon. Should remain dry tonight through tomorrow there. And pretty good really up through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island. And then for Tuesday, that big storm pulls northward into Russia, and we're left with pretty brisk winds coming all the way across the Bering Sea here and then up into the southwest coast. So there are coastal flood advisories out for the Kuskokwim and Yukon Delta coastline, Nunivak Island, and possibly even to the north here. This front holding together better than the one that slips in here tomorrow. So we've got good storm force winds in the forecast here all along the southwest coast there across Nunivak Island right up to St. Lawrence Island, southeast 50. They're calling for on Tuesday, and then of course that'll diminish, turn southerly as the front pushes through late in the day, but good surge of warm air coming up with this. So some of these areas starting out as snow, but then again trending toward rain as warmer air pushes northward. And some clouds make their way into the western interior, but basically even though the high center is pulling off to the east here, we've got still pretty good conditions. VFR, clear skies from the eastern Arctic coast, really not too bad over toward Barrow and Wainwright, all the way down again into the Gulf of Alaska, and barely a breeze here through the interior, and even less of a breeze from the North Gulf Coast. Winds quite light under basically high pressure. System down here to the south and high pressure to the north. That's going to keep the gradient pretty tight across the northern panhandle. And there are high wind watches out for that, for possibly gusts exceeding 70 miles an hour in the normally windier areas. Otherwise, again, sunshine, light winds for the Prince William Sound area, Resurrection Bay. Temperatures across the panhandle today, mid-40s to lower 50s, 53 at Sitka, 49 down at Klawock, while Juneau had 45. Yakutat 51, 41 at Cordova, and that temperature matched at Seward, while Valdez pushed up to 39 degrees. McCarthy 31, 18 at Tok with 21 in Fairbanks, and generally in the teens here to the north with 12 at Fort Yukon, 15 at Bettles, 9 at Anaktuvik, and 34 up at Barrow, rising above the frost point there. 24 though at Aptusuk and 28 over at Dead Horse with 33 Cape Lisburne and 30 degrees Kivalina. Kotzebue 27, 36 there at Wales. Nome had 35, and mid-20s here down into the northern Kuskokwim Valley with McGrath at 24. That warmed up to 34 by the time you got down to Bethel, and kind of a range here along the southwest coast from lower 30s to mid-40s with a 41 at Savunga, mid to upper 40s for the Pribilofs, and some lower 50s here out over the central Aleutians, and near 50 for Unalaska, and 40s to near 50 for the Alaska Peninsula. For lows tonight, again below zero here from the eastern north slope across the interior right down to the Copper River Basin in the 5 to maybe 15 below range. Milder here above zero through the west central interior, and then much milder as you get out toward the coast. Lows in the lower 40s there, right up to St. Lawrence Island, near 30 for the Seward Peninsula, upper 30s to mid 40s out over the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians, and 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow, single numbers in teens, eastern interior into the Copper River Basin, eventually arriving at 20 degrees here as you head west, and then pretty good contrast. You get out toward the coast, looking at mid 30s to lower 40s for the Seward Peninsula, mid 40s along the coast, into Bristol Bay, lower 40s, and 30s for south central Alaska, mid to upper 40s for the Panhandle. Flying weather tomorrow, good VFR from the Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, as I mentioned, up to the Arctic coast there. Barrow kind of right on the edge of the marginal VFR that's shifting northward, and some marginal VFR here along the coast. Again, that band pulling westward there, so it's looking pretty good for the Panhandle. IFR St. Lawrence Island, remnants of that front still brings a threat of marginal VFR down along the coast of the Alaska Peninsula, and then VFR being replaced by lower conditions as that next storm pushes in. And for tomorrow, we've got a fairly narrow area of IFR here from Kiska Island to not quite Adak and then northward, and that leaves Atka over to Unalaska and even Falls Pass in the VFR range, as well as the Pribilofs. VFR south coast of the Seward Peninsula in the Yukon Delta, marginal stuff to the north, and VFR over all of interior Alaska right on down to Dixon Entrance. Anaktuvik and Adigan, both VFR once again tomorrow, and Lake Clark, Merrill, and Rainy, all VFR again, just like today. Windy, same forecast. Isabel looking good. Mentasta VFR, Tanita VFR also, Portage VFR, Chilcoot and White VFR, and kind of got into a trance there, and for the or a chant, and 6,000 feet here for the freezing levels late tonight, right over south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, kind of nosing to the northwest there. At the surface, 2,000 feet eastern interior, and 2,000 to 6,000 feet there across the Panhandle and Dixon Entrance, and then some warmer air coming up again with that storm pulling northward. 8,000 feet arrives over the western Aleutians. For icing, none over interior Alaska or the Panhandle, the Alaska Peninsula, only from Atka over to about a little beyond Kiska Island. Look for some icing above about 6,000 feet. Some of that could be occasional widespread moderate. And then for jet stream tomorrow, ridging out through here, still pushing up northward in toward the Bering Strait there, but the strong south jet associated with the storm in front supporting those strong surface winds, northwesterlies at about 140 knots sweeping southward across the Alaska Peninsula, and the more northerly branch here, 50 to 70 knots. This is just east of the border, coming down right across, say, Yakutat to Cordova, and then wrapping in to this low center, which is well south of the Panhandle. And for 9,000 feet, basically offshore flow here for the southeast coast on the light side, and light variable winds, Kodiak Island, Prince William Sound, northward, picking up to about 20 knots along the central coast, and then increased 25 to 30 knots eastern Bering Sea on up toward the Bering Strait, and then the big winds out here over the central Aleutians, 70 to 80 knots out to the west, diminishing for Shimia, and then from there north. 3,000 feet showing about the same pattern here. The strongest winds, central Aleutians, gradually pushing eastward, but 50 to 70 knots at 3,000 feet right across the Aleutians and on to the north. High pressure, light winds, Alaska Peninsula, western interior, 35 knot winds blowing across the Seward Peninsula into Kotzebue Sound, but much lighter and variable here over the interior. You can see some northeast to 20 there over the eastern Alaska range, but pretty light for the most part, North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. Turbulence, maybe some moderate chop here below about 4,000 feet. Otherwise, main area turbulence, occasional moderate chop, Alaska Peninsula, northward across St. Lawrence Island, and then also back out here to the west over the western Aleutians. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Okay, we're all set. Oil's okay, gas is sumped, hydraulic reservoir is full. Now that your pre-flight's complete, it's a good idea to go and get a weather briefing from your local flight service station. In this country, it's real important. How's it going, Dick?
Pretty good, Don. How you doing this morning?
Yeah, good. Heading up to the hill today, Southeast Fork. What do you got for weather up in that area?
Well, basically, we've got a pretty well entrenched high-pressure system over Siberia. It's keeping the lows pretty well south of us along the chain and the peninsula. We'll probably be in the fringe area up here of some middle and high clouds, 12,000 scattered with high thin cirrus. Lower clouds and possibly some light precipitation in the southern Susitna Valley, but I don't expect any up in the northern valley or along the range today.
Okay. All right, real good. Thanks, Dick. And we'll file flight plan. Because of some of the extreme weather conditions up on the glacier and the environment there, we want to be sure and bring some special survival gear along. For sure, and a couple of sleeping bags, an extra parka, some snowshoes, some good survival gear. Your life could depend on it. Okay, a good thought is the word cigar. And that includes C for controls, that controls move free and easy. I for instruments. I've got multi-directional gyro set, altimeter set. Gauges are in the green. Valve flap open. G, gas. A, attitude. R, rudder set. I, roger, talking, filing, face holes on board the aircraft. And 4 hours of fuel on board. 2 hours in route, southeast fork communication. Survival gear on board. 2 hours in route, last on power on fuel. As we start gaining altitude, we'll slowly start losing our manifold pressure because of the density of the air. So Okay, real good. We still don't have visual. We'll enter one side pass at about a 45-degree angle, and we're watching for wind here coming over the top. Okay, well, we have inside the ball.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Patch up here to the northwest and then over toward Mackenzie Bay. That's about the extent of it. And then a narrow band here again, mostly inside the Barrier Islands there on the west side, and a narrow strip there around Point Lay, both northwest and southwest. And some new ice here around Kotzebue Sound. Otherwise, not looking for a lot of change, no big changes here. Winds are going to be southerly, and actually temperatures should be on the upswing, a little bit warmer. Anyway, no big changes, especially anything in the way of a flash freeze up. North, 45 knots in the forecast, Lynn Canal tomorrow, 25 knots Stevens Passage, and 20 to 25 knot northeast winds along the coast. For Tuesday, 30 knot north to northeast winds on the north coast, lighter conditions down south, and then we've got 15 knots for Clarence Strait out of the northeast, up to 35 knots there for Lynn Canal. For Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, light winds, northwest breeze here for Kamishak Bay, light winds, Shelikof Strait, northwest 20 there off Kodiak Island, and then winds stay pretty light here, northwest 10 to 15 for the North Gulf Coast, light winds, Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, all the way down here across Shelikof Strait. And for Bristol Bay, light winds tomorrow under high pressure, and then light southwest wind here for the Alaska Peninsula with 7-foot seas, and west at 10 from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. And then those small craft advisories come in to that area on Tuesday, south 25 knots, southeast 30 for Bristol Bay. Gales here on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula from some southerly component in the direction southeast to southwest, 35 knots, small craft advisories on the south side. And also south 25 for the Fox Islands, and you get into a pretty dramatic increase in winds as you get west of Nikolsky, 40 to 60 to 65 knot winds for the central Aleutians back to the west, behind the front, west at 30. For Tuesday, west 40 knots here, a pretty stiff westerly wind turns southwesterly for minimum gales over the central Aleutians, and then that drops off to 20 to 25 knots across Unalaska Island. Southwest coast, winds increase from south to north at 20 knots here to 35 knot gales for St. Lawrence Island. Even stronger over the northern Bering Sea and St. Matthew Island with those seas up to 20 feet. Gales for the Pribilofs. And those hold but become more southwesterly on Tuesday. And now we've got storm warnings all along the coast, 50 to 55 knots, right up to St. Lawrence Island, 55 knot winds. Also out for the northern Bering Sea and St. Matthew Island. Eastern Arctic coast or eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, south to southwest 10 to 15, 20 knots from the central coast, pick up to 25 there on the western coast. And we've got gale warnings out tomorrow from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort. And for Tuesday, high-end gales, full gales here. Whales all the way up to Cape Beaufort, 45 knots out of the southeast, seas up to 14 feet. Southeast 25 on the western coast, southerlies at 15 along the central and east side. For tonight again, high pressure, and that area of snow lifts northward. So just look for a few clouds along the coast, and that's about it. Light winds, high pressure, cold temperatures below zero through much of the eastern interior from the Copper River Basin to the eastern North Slope. This area of rain pushes off the coast here, just about exiting even Sitka to Port Alexander, and this weakening front keeps it damp over the Alaska Peninsula, northwestward to St. Lawrence Island, and then the next big storm with gales, storms, and even hurricane force winds in one of the marine areas out there in advance of the front for tomorrow, and increasing winds but dry for the eastern Aleutians and Pribilofs, and a very weak front hardly producing any weather at all beyond clouds there along the west coast. A little bit more in the way of precipitation up to the north. Sunshine, windy over the northern panhandle, and a little bit less wind the next day. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Thanks for your continued support of Alaska Public Media. I'm Kristen Hall, Director of Member Engagement. Without our members, there'd be no Frontline, Nature, Nova, or Arthur. It's your support that makes all the difference. On behalf of all of us here at Alaska Public Media, thanks to all of our members for choosing to invest in great programming.